Welcome everyone to episode 109 of the Let's Discuss Gaming podcast. I am your host Triple J. Joining me is my co-host Dr. Games 101,
Yo, what's going on, guys?
and we have a bunch of gaming news to get into that came up over the last couple of weeks. So, Dr. Games 101, you ready to start with tackling that news?
Oh, yes, things have definitely been going around quietly good.
All right, so the first story for tonight. Gear 6 almost blasted off to space, says former coalition boss. However, Rod Ferguson explained that it wasn't like we're just going to start mass affecting this. Thank you. Someone, the voice of reason, did come in. Keep Gears of War on Earth, please. We don't need
Yes.
it. We don't need to mass affect it. We don't need to red faction it, aka sending it to Mars. Keep it on Earth. Space, the final frontier for Gears of War 6. That apparently was in the cards years ago when former the Coalition head honcho Rod Ferguson was at the studio. However, those plans may have changed as the next game in the franchise is Gears of War E-Day. Appearing on IGN's podcast Unlocked, Ferguson, who now oversees the Diablo series, opened up about where he wanted to go with Gears of War 6. So what I wanted to do with Gears 6 is get you off Sarah to encounter what that could mean to the rest of the galaxy, at least the rest of the solar system. However, Ferguson clarified that he didn't mean Kate Diaz and Marcus Phoenix would be hopping between planets. Gears of War 5 teased old Russian-like technology for getting off Sarah, so the goal seemed to be just a new place or planet to raise the stakes. It wasn't like we're just going to start mass affecting this, Ferguson said. Last year, Ferguson revealed that he wrote a Gears of War 6 outline before having to join Activision. Before leaving to join Activision, excuse me. At that time, he admitted the Coalition might have thrown his plans out, which would be fine with him. While it's unknown what shape Gears of War 6 may take, the Coalition is focusing on the past first Gears of War E-Day. On the past first Gears of War E-Day was unveiled in the Xbox Game Showcase in June. The game is a prequel that will see a young Marcus Phoenix fighting off the Locust during Emergence Day, making it set 14 years before the original Gears of War. Ferguson thinks Gears of War E-Day is really smart and curious about the challenge of the lack of the Lancer in the prequel. It believes people come to the cover-based shooter. He believes people come to the cover-based shooter for the chainsaw gun. I can tell you, as a big Gears of War fan, yes, the Lancer is cool, but that's not the only reason.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at. There is a comment, just one. I'm a big fan of the original trilogy. Marcus Phoenix is front and center to no modern day nonsense wanted. So, what did you think about them possibly taking Gears of War to space?
Well, in regards to E Day that's coming out next year or so, I mean, makes partial sense at first, but then again, the scene of it all, it's kind of like Gears was not meant to be in an actual space setting, but if they can somehow advance, do some sort of timeline skip ahoid, you want to call it like that, to make sure it blends in with the regular Gears of War universe, maybe it might be possible. Um, it's kind of weird that it really puts Gears of War 6 to be in space, but it is what it is. If they're gonna do that, so
Well, well, I do have to say, it sounds like they're not doing that anymore.
that's good.
It sounded like it was a possibility, but not something that was a definite green light. Something they started working on. Um, Obviously, it has no place in Emergence Day, which is going to be the kickoff of the Gears of War series. Um, in chronological order. Um, so yeah, I'm glad they're not sending. I'm glad they're not doing this. Where I'm glad they're not doing it where um, oh, we're just going to copy Mass Effect. We're good, or we're just going to copy this, or we're just going to copy that because we're totally out of ideas and we're creatively bankrupt. Um, I'm glad they're not doing that with Gears of War because you're just going to ruin Gears of War. If you're going to take Mass Effect and say we need to apply this to Gears of War, just don't even make another Gears of War game. Um, but Emergence Days does sound good. It does sound like it will be something that people will like, especially to see Marcus Phoenix, one of the most favorite characters of the series, to see like his origin story basically and how he became a COG member.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna and it's and while the Lancer not being there is gonna because it wouldn't fit timeline wise, just because while it's fun to chop chainsaw like a swarm or a locust in half, if they get too close, it's not enough to ruin the game, in my opinion. What they can do to ruin the game is if they suicide squad it, if they or if they Gotham Knights it, or if they or if they do something like what is it? If they concord it, if they throw all this garbage that people have already rejected, and I know I really shouldn't get into politics, but it does play a part. People voted based on that, and the vote showed with Trump getting the popular vote and the electoral vote that people don't want this woke nonsense in their games, and that goes for Gears of War as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's going to ruin it. And honestly, you had Gears of War 1 through 5. You had Gears of War Judgment. Okay, maybe the planet was sour, but it looked like Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Some location in Earth. Um, keep it on that planet. You know, and like I said, I think what really will succeed is A, if they add any of the nonsense that makes its way into too many modern day games, or B, if they totally mess up Marcus Phoenix's story.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely with all the
If
censorship and SJWs invading the gaming space, both the gamers as well as the creators of the games for the last
yeah,
7 years now.
I mean, yeah. Also, make Gears of War 6 playable. I mean, I played Gears 5 on Game Pass, and like every time I made it to like a new area, a new screen, I got kicked back to the game to the dashboard.
I didn't have the problem on
Make
my
Gears
perspective at all on Gears 5 with Gears 5 that is.
So I mean, I gave up on Gears 5 and I just played Gears 4 multiplayer when I had Game Pass. So the only thing I would say is make sure Gears 6 is functional, make Marcus's story interesting, and leave all the modern day nonsense in the trash can. Anything else to add or ready to move on?
Well, I like to say though with the Gear 6, soon to be Gear 6 of if it's in regard to the Gears of War E Day, it should go back to its roots with this as a prequel prior to the Gears of War 1 game back in 2006 and
They
all.
are. It's gonna be 14 years before the original Gears of War.
Oh yeah, I figured as much, and I did my research about this. Not research, but I glanced into that matter with watching the trailer many months ago. They released back, either E3. Oh, it's not called E3, but the Xbox showcase and all back in June. So it's now the Gaming War is gonna show another trailer as well, hopefully. So let's see what happens in a couple of weeks or so, and see Game Awards not gonna screw up the Gears of War franchise with the 6 Gears of War game. So.
Right. Seventh, actually.
Seventh. Oh yeah, if you want to include the Gears of War tactics.
No, Gears of War Judgment.
Don't forget about the game tactics too, like the turn-based game as well.
I honestly didn't know about that game.
Yeah, it came out about at least 2 years ago. Last time I checked, it was on the This Week of
Okay.
Xbox. So I watched. I tried to best to watch This Week at Xbox at least once a week, wherever it comes out, and then or at least once every few weeks, depends upon how much content there is out there. So because during the holiday season, they jam pack a lot of games, events, you name it, into these holiday season this week. So it's pretty cool. But I do miss Major Nelson though for broadcasting himself on This Week at Xbox. But he left the company, as you can tell, from many months, if not a good year now, from Xbox. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah. Yeah, so okay, but yeah, so I mean, Gears of War Tactics. Honestly, I really didn't know about it. Also, no one else talks about it, so I feel like it's almost like a lost game, like Super Mario Brothers 2, the Lost Levels. No one talks about the Japanese Mario 2
Yeah.
until at first, until many years later. So since no one really mentions Gears of War Tactics anymore, that's why I didn't mention it. Also, I didn't know about it. I only played it. Was Gears of War Tactics like a portable console, or was it on home consoles?
I'm not sure if it's either most likely a cell phone game, like one of those mobile
Yeah, because it
games.
could have been a mobile game also, which is
Yeah,
why people didn't talk about it.
yeah, that was the moment that where what was that? Obviously this was Diablo, of course, but still, he was like, "Is this an April Fool's joke type of moment?" That's what it was, basically, with the Gears Tactics. Like, what is this game? Like, what the fuck? So,
Okay, so I was sticking to just major console releases, which was 1 through 5, and then Gears of War Judgment.
oh yeah,
But even if you count Tactics, this then E Day is still not the sixth game.
right, of course.
Yeah, so I mean we'll see. But yeah, I'm glad we don't need another space simulator.
Yeah,
Leave that to Mass Effect.
yeah,
Ready to move on?
yeah. I'm ready.
All right, next. Life is Strange devs workers are going on strike over impending layoffs. Don't Nod workers are due to strike this Friday after the studio announced its redundancy plan last month. Workers of the French gaming studio Don't Nod, the developers um, behind Jusant, Life is Strange, and 1 and 2, and upcoming release Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, are set to strike this week due to imminent layoffs. The Les Syndicate des Travailleurs et Video Game Workers Union announced that the picket line will be next to the studio's headquarters in Paris. Last week, the union called for a strike due to the 69 jobs at the studio that are at risk. Don't Nod CEO Oscar Goulbert explained that a new initiative was designed for a reorganization project to ensure the company's long term future and deteriorating financial results. Our half year result for 2024 reflect the economic underperformance of our latest release, despite solid ratings on Metacritic, as well as the accounting impact of the decisions we had to take. The initial performance support measures announced last spring no longer seem efficient to maintain the company's competitiveness, Gilbert said in a statement. As a result, today we presented a reorganization project, to the employee representative bodies, which could set Don't Nod on a new development trajectory, he added. I am fully conscious of the impact this project may have on all our employees. Securing our company's resources and restoring its ability to perform more in an increasingly competitive and selective industry is extremely necessary. STIV pointed out its demands and countered the statement with why the workers are striking and how it can be called off. We demand that management immediately give up on this irresponsible and unfair layoffs plan. We demand that the studio's workers, who are the most competent people, have an actual say in all decision making. We demand the presence of Oscar Gulbert in the negotiations and that he takes full responsibility as CEO, it read. This layoff plan is violent, and will not save our company. We therefore call on our colleagues to continue their mobilization with a 1 day strike on Friday, November 8th. Despite having to pause production of two future releases due to lackluster sales of both um, Jusant and Banishers, Ghost of New Eden, Don't Nod still has high hopes on for Lost Records, Bloom and Rage out in February. So let me see the comments. There's just a couple. Calculator Ramza goes, headlines get kind of weird when your most well known game started a series that you haven't made either of the two most recent entries of. And Carpet Rough goes, striking over possible redundancy is like saying you want to be one of those let go. So, what do you think about the studio responsible for like Life is Strange and other games which I really hadn't heard of, uh, basically going on strike?
Now, it's not. I'm very surprised to do that right this second though, because I don't know the whole details of the strike, in its entirety. But let's just say that Life is Strange Double Exposure is coming out sometime this year, or has already been released by now.
It came out on Halloween.
Okay, that's good. Just want to make sure. So, it's only been 2 weeks now, over 2 weeks just about after a release, and now they're asking for a strike. I mean, the workers said this, of course, and I mean, as long as they get paid, which I'm assuming they not got paid yet, but the sales still keep coming in for double exposure. So it's I don't know the exact numbers how much been sold, but it appealed towards more female gamers because they did a commercial towards female gamers of Life is Strange double exposure.
Yeah,
So
they didn't mention double exposure though, so I don't know if True Colors and Double Exposure had a different development team because they just mentioned Life is Strange 1 and 2.
okay, yeah,
Um
so because obviously
but
Life is
like I said,
Strange,
the
yeah,
the other games like Jusant and Rage and Bloom, I never heard of these series.
yeah, same here. It's something new to me altogether just now. And yeah, it's I mean, yes, they lost money through. I'm sure certain through, especially the these newest games, but the remaster should have been like a good sale right there, to most gamers, especially the female gamers. So it's not that many female gamers at one point back years back when the first Life is Strange came out, but in recent memory, now it's like million not I guess you call them millions of female gamers now are in the gaming community more than ever. So that's more power to the gaming community. I don't mind female gamers. Playing like Life is Strange or Call of Duty, Gears of War, especially Gears of War 5 with Kate as the main protagonist. Like I said with Gears of War, with this, it misses steps somewhat. But other than that, this Life is Strange series, as long as they keep being creative and keep selling good, decent copies, it shouldn't be a problem for them to be on strike anytime soon. But at this rate, it seems the case that either the workers are too greedy, or the game makers or the companies themselves are being too greedy themselves. And we're seeing all these strikes happen throughout the year now, from the longshoreman strike, going about the eastern United States as well as the Gulf of Mexico, where we trade between nations for the last how many years now, since the pandemic especially. So it was coming sooner of these strikes from 4 years after the pandemic, because whatever happened during the pandemic, it's affecting everyone now, from small as us, you and I, gamers trying to buy certain games that are expensive, to as big as companies that are trying to save money through, you know, laying off people, and then these workers had it. I can't blame them. These workers, so.
Yeah. First off, to the people watching, if you want to send your hate mail about what Doctor Games and One was said about claiming females play mostly Life is Strange, you can send your hate mail to Doctor Games 101, care of the Let's Discuss Gaming podcast, PO Box 345.
No, but seriously, they actually did a commercial too on YouTube. Like if you watch YouTube and see their advertisements, you see this nice, cute girl, gotta be old and like 21, whatever, sitting down playing this double exposure game, and she was crying, she was laughing, she was smiling. They appeal towards that kind of gamer. So.
That's Doctor Games 101, care of the Let's Discuss Gaming podcast, PO Box 345.
Hey, it's not my fault they made that commercial. Especially towards us, towards female gamers. It's not
Well,
my
you're
fault.
forgetting. I played Life is Strange 1. I played Life is Strange True Colors. I played Before the Storm. All
Yeah,
those games I played to completion.
but you know what I mean. They try to advertise more towards the or that kind of audience now more than ever. That's a good thing. 'Cause it
Dr.
wasn't
Games
like
101.
this.
I do need to remind people Dr. Games 101 really likes Tomb Raider, although that's a female lead role in Tomb Raider. So
You know what I mean? Come on now, James. You watch YouTube like as much as me, if not more than me.
your hole is 3 feet deep. Keep digging.
Hey, it's not my fault the year 2024, not the year 1995, and I'm still stuck in. Or supposedly speaking, my God, I mean, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. The makers want to advertise to female gamers. That's up to them. That's fine. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
okay.
Uh, yeah. So anyway, in all seriousness, um, yeah, I mean, I understand the workers. This really seems not to just be a. I rag on Phil Spencer a lot for this, especially when he said that he knew he was going to have to let people go after the acquisition um, but of the Activision Blizzard merger, he said he knew he was going to let people go with all the billions he spent or tens of billions he spent on that acquisition. And it just seems like more people are doing that. And it's like, if you don't have the money, maybe you should have. Why are you putting yourself in a situation where you're going to have to lay off people?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not, the formula to make a good game has not changed. Look at Life is Strange. It's like what, a 10-hour game. Um, each entry before the storm might actually be shorter because they only got 3 chapters instead of 5, and then they got the bonus chapter if you count that,
Oh, yeah.
which wasn't part of the main story. Well, you found out what happened to Chloe and Max the last time they met before Max moved away, and then Life is Strange. The first one is when Max came back 5 years later or so.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, so while the bonus chapter had nothing to do with Chloe and Rachel's relationship, it showed you what happened to Chloe and Max. But I mean, you know, I, what the formula to make a game has not changed. I mean, and I hate this thing about cost. No, it cost. I mean, if you're spending more than your budget to make these games, that's not the developer's fault. That's not the that's not the worker's fault. That's not the gamer's fault. That's your fault. You were able to make these games for a good price, and it's not like, as much as I like Life is Strange and Life is Strange Before the Storm and True Colors, you you were able to, it's not like these games graphics were knocking socks off. It's not like the games it's not like the game sound was 4K sound. No, these were simple to play games. So it's not, and they were not graphical or audio masterpieces. They worked, they functioned like a game should, but I wouldn't really be surprised if like any of the Life is Strange games won an award based on its graphics or voice acting. The voice acting was good, it was believable, but at the same time, if you spent too much money to make that game, maybe you should have cut costs somewhere and been more efficient in your spending.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, the CEO should definitely be there for these negotiations because he's the one making decisions. So he should be there and have to face the employees that he eventually wants to lay off.
Yeah, they
And I
had
do,
it.
I agree. These workers, they should have some kind of protection. If they're going to be laid off, they should have some kind of protection to help them get back on their feet or get a new job. Just because of this, whenever you hear this kind of plan, uh, I don't know if I X'd out the article or not. Yeah, I did. But when they talk like reshaping plan or anything like that, it's bad news.
Oh, yeah.
Because so yeah, I definitely agree with the development team.
Yeah, they had it. These recent workers, after how many years? Not years, but a good couple of years now. Layoffs from Microsoft and Blizzard and Activision and other game companies we mentioned over this podcast for the last year or so. It's someone has to stand their own ground and stop this stuff. Look, I understand that business people have to make decisions and save money as well as make money as the ultimate end game of all. That's what the business is about, to make money. But all this unsteadiness work and all for these us gamers or anyone who wants to join gaming companies to make a living, it's not worth it anymore these days. Maybe 15 years ago, where there's more like more security and long term employment for these companies like that have Naughty Dog or perhaps Telltale Games at the time of its beginning inception back in 2009, 2010, whatever at the time. But now it's like you can't even keep a job no longer than a year or 2 years, depending upon what kind of work you're doing. And
Yeah,
also, it's like when we were working a lot back in the day in the 2010s, late 2000s, right? Triple J, like it's like it was all going from job to job, place to place, some cases, and it's like it wasn't
not
steady.
not 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 for me. The job I worked in 2010. Well, I left one job in 2010, but I'd been there since 2008, and it was my choice to leave.
Okay.
A deli job did not work out, but then I found a job in May of 2010, and I worked there till October of 2014.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. But you are different experiences from others, including myself. Oh yeah, it's just a wild ride at one point. Now it's like I have my own business. So we have our own respective businesses or types of businesses, and it's hard out there. Like it's very hard these days, and just 2008 crisis especially. And I know we should talk about economics in this layoffs of Life is Strange and all that development team and all, but it is related from that minuscule or that trivial, in a sense, in my perspective.
Right,
So
right. Anything else to add, or ready to move on?
we can move on.
Okay. One more reminder: send your hate mail to Dr. Games 101, care of the Let's Discuss Gaming podcast, PO Box 345.
Thanks. I'll accept the paper as much as possible.
All right. Next, Sega is delisting many of its classic games in December. Some will still be available through the Nintendo Switch Online subscription. Sega announced that it will be delisting many of its classic games on December 6th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific, December 7th, 2:59 a.m. Eastern. The list of games leaving digital stores include Jet Set Radio, Golden Axe, and Phantasy Star 2, among many others. Those who have already purchased them will be able to continue playing them, and some individual titles will still be available for those subscribed to Nintendo Switch Online. Sega didn't provide any particular reason for the delistings or specify which individual titles that Nintendo Switch Online subscribers would still be able to have access to after the delistings. Sega is currently working on new entries uh, to five of its classic franchises, which include Jet Set Radio, Shinobi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, and Crazy Taxi. Not much is known about them so far, but Sega confirmed earlier this year that the new Crazy Taxi will feature an open world and contain some multiplayer elements. Sega also just revealed that it is developing a new Virtua Fighter game. Here are the full list of games that will be delisted: Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, Alien Soldier, Alien Storm, Altered Beast, Beyond Oasis, Biohazard Battle, Bonanza Brothers, Columns 2, Comic Zone, Crackdown, Crazy Taxi, Decap Attack, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Dreamcast Collection Bundle, Dynamite Heady, Echo Jr., Echo the Dolphin, Echo the Tides of Time, eSWAT, City Under Siege, Eternal Champions, Fatal Libeth, Flicky, Galaxy Force 2, Gain Ground, Golden Axe 1, 2, and 3, Gunstar Heroes, Jet Set Radio, Kid Chameleon, Landstalker, The Treasures of King Note, Light Crusader, Mega Drive, and the Genesis Classic Bundle, Nights into Dreams, Phantasy Star 2, Phantasy Star 3, Generations of Doom, Phantasy Star 4, The End of the Millennium, Y-Star, Sega Bass Fishing, Shadow Dancer, Shining Force 2, Shining in the Darkness, Shinobi 2, Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master, Sonic 3D Blast, Sonic Spinball, Space Channel 5 Part 2, Space Harrier 2, the three Streets of Rage games, Super Thunder Blade, Sword of Vermilion, The Revenge of Shinobi, Toe Jam and Earl, and Panic on Funkatron, Vector Man 2, Virtua Fighter 2, Wonder Boy and Monster World, Wonder Boy 3, Monster Lair. Xbox, so I don't know if these are going to be playable on Xbox or if these are going to be delisted on Xbox when in this section. But here it says Altered Beast, Crazy Taxi, Sega Genesis Classics, Golden Axe, Monster World, Nights into Dreams, Sega Bass Fishing, Shinobi, Sonic the Fighters, Streets of Rage, SVC, Toe Jam and All, and Virtua Fighter 2, PlayStation and Nintendo Switch, Sega Genesis Classics. So let's look at the comments. Let's see. XY Lymphidite goes, wish they'd just release a Crazy Taxi, which they just re-released Crazy Taxi with the real soundtrack. Oh, and give us a PSO collection with all the PSO and PSP games. But instead, they're just validating emulation yet again. Scipio goes, more greed so they can remove then re-release. Just play the originals. The upscale makes it a little easier on the eyes. War Greymon 77 goes, ugh, when are we going to get a new Shining Force SRPG? So, what do you think of all these games being delisted?
games like Sega Bass Fishing and Knights of Journey the Dreams will be delisted, especially from
Crazy Taxi, Streets of Rage,
shit,
Shining
man.
Force.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Is it on Xbox and PS4 as well, or is the
Uh, I I don't know if these games the games in the Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo Switch Online sections. I don't know if the games would still be available or if those games would also have to be downloaded before they're delisted.
because if you're a current holder of these games, especially games like that of Streets of Rage or Virtual Fighter, if I remember correctly, those type of games, like you can still keep onto them still and still be listed under your account as long as you have access to your account. That's what I
Right.
hear. That's the
Yeah.
current
That. Yeah.
policy of the
They're
Xbox.
not taking the games away from your account.
That's good, but it's still gonna be hard for the future gamers. So whoever these gamers are, it could be as gamers from like 20 years from now, or even 100 years from now. It's yes, there'll still be emulation somehow somewhere on the internet. But now I'm hearing that not only Nintendo's doing this, but other entities from the Copyright Office, like that holds the DMCA policies and all, they try to crack down on these archival and emulated games on the internet. It's ridiculous. It's a travesty. There's no such thing as preserving history of games or just history in general speaking. It's all about deleting it because it's too buggy or it's too controversial or it's too political. Depends upon what game you're talking about. So it's sooner or later, if I remember correctly now, since Metal Gear Solid 3 remake has been out since this year right now or next year. I'm not sure when it's coming out exactly, but I mean, I'm sure they're going to delist Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 HD collection on the Xbox store specifically. I still have access to that game no matter what. But last time we did a podcast earlier this year, late last year, they delisted it from the store because it's too political and it's too controversial to put out there publicly. And they also want to sell people the newer versions, like the next volume 2, whatever it is, remake or volume 2 collection. That they have volume 1 collection out already so far. So it sucks, man. You gotta get the original experience for some of these games we had back when we were kids. Oh, sure, we can go online and or somewhere on the internet or some flea market somewhere out in the United States to get old games somehow, some way. My friend got Fear Effect 1 for not even $20, and it was on sale. If you want to call it a sale, back in 2000 for like 50, $60. I'm like, it's a steal. So best of luck to fellow gamers who are our age to find these games physically. It's going to be like a war over if over gaming. It sucks.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, I got Toe Jam and all and Panic on Funkatron for the Sega Genesis because that's one of like my favorite games for the Genesis.
That's good.
So that's fine. And even the games I have through Xbox, I have the Sega Vintage Collection Streets of Rage trilogy. I have Crazy Taxi, the first one, and those games aren't going anywhere because they're already downloaded. It's just basically games that you haven't purchased yet from digitally are going to be delisted. You'll still be able to, get most of these games on Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection. That's not going anywhere. So, I mean, you might have to get it for the PS3 or 360, but those games are, that collection will still be around. All these delistings are digital only, by the way.
Right.
Um, just keep that in mind. So if you want to get any of these titles or a handful of these titles, maybe check out Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection if you have a PS3 or 360 hooked up and see if the games that you're interested in are on that collection because they do have like some series on there like the Sonic the Hedgehog and Streets of Rage I think were on there. Golden Axe was on there. So, maybe check out that collection or just if it's just a few games, see if the games are cheaper themselves if you got the original Sega Genesis and get the cartridges on Genesis and play them that way. This is a drawback to digital games. They can stop selling it whenever they want. What they don't realize is that that either A, people will just do emulation, or B, people will just go to eBay, Amazon, or some other storefront and buy the games there.
Or flea markets depends on where you go in the country.
Flea markets, garage sales, estate sales, stuff, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, yeah, if those games, yeah. So I mean, it sucks. I don't. They didn't give a reason why all these games are going to be delisted all of a sudden. But you got till December 7th to get your hands on these games. December 6th, really, because unless you're unless you're a guy who stays up throughout the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because if you wake up December 7th in the morning, you're going to be uh, if you wake up in the middle of the morning, like 8 a.m., 9 a.m., December 7th, you're going to be pretty disappointed
Mm-hmm.
if you were waiting to get your hands on these games. So get your hands on these games now, or just look to older hardware.
Definitely. Also
Anything,
too, like I say, another reason behind them delisted, also want to resell them as a package or separately in a new HD remake or nice HD remaster or a re-release just to begin with on new consoles and sell at a high price too, because you can't find
yeah,
them cheap in physical anymore. If at this rate, I should
cheap,
say.
cheaper than getting all the physical games, but more expensive than being able to buy them. I believe that's probably happening also. But again, it's no one wants to pay for Resident Evil 5 different times for the same original Resident Evil, and that goes for any other game. I don't want to pay. I don't want to pay again to play Crazy Taxi. I don't want to pay again to play Streets of Rage or other games. So
It all depends on the gamer, because 20 years from now, there's gonna be a new market for those gamers, especially. Right now, look at what's going on with the game market now. Everyone wants buying the microtransactions. These kids play Fortnite, Apex Legends, any live service games, even just single player games like Devil May Cry 5. I'm sure there's new gamers in Devil May Cry 5 as we speak, and they'll spend like at least $10 on some orbs to buy more lives. I admit that I was one of those guys that spent $4 for like 100,000 orbs, something like that. So it suckered me in after a couple of years of playing. No, 3 years, if not 5 years of playing Devil May Cry 5 to this day. As of last year, that's what I did. I actually sold, not sold, I bought like $4 worth of orbs. Altogether, it was like $100 orbs to buy certain moves, certain move sets, you name it. And all of a sudden, I was hooked like a sinker because I was desperate because the game was getting harder and harder on Dante Must Die mode. First time in a while that did Dante Must Die mode, because originally with Dante Must Die mode, it took me years to get up to level 20 in Devil May Cry 3, because I didn't cheat. I just literally just memorized and keep playing the game and adapt to those hard settings. But in these days, now everyone wants to buy their way to beat the game. It's pathetic. There's no originality in the matter. No hard willing to fight your way to the top. You want to call it like that. So in a sense,
yeah, yeah. So I mean, like I said, it's just go after these games now if you got the money. If you don't have the money right now, then you might have to just go for older hardware.
oh yeah,
Ready to move on?
oh yes, indeed.
Okay.
Already.
Next, Sony talks Concord's failure and the hard lessons learned from it. Plight of the Concorde. The disastrous launch of Concord was the focus of a new interview with Sony President Hiroki Totoki, who spoke about how the company plans to avoid a repeat of this with future game releases. Part of Sony's strategy will ensure that a game goes through a more rigorous period of testing and evaluation prior to it being released. Currently, we are still in the process of learning, Hiroki said through an interpreter via VGC during a Q&A session following its latest financial earnings call. And basically, with regards to View IP, of course, you don't know the result until you actually try it. So for us, for our reflection, we probably need to have a lot of gates, including user testing or internal evaluation, and the timing of such gates. And then we need to bring them forward, and we should have done those gates much earlier than we did. Hiroki added that Sony will also look at when it plans to launch a game so as to avoid potentially cannibalizing sales between releases from its first party studios and third party partners. It's worth noting that Concord launched just 3 days after Black Myth Wukong, a game that performed very well on PS5 and PC, and other high profile releases around Concord included Star Wars Outlaws and Madden NFL 25. On the opposite end of the live service spectrum, Helldivers 2 was a surprise hit on PS5 and PC, and Sony said that there were new lessons to be learned from both games going forward. The company also plans to release a mix of single player and live service games in the future, allowing it to focus on its strengths while pursuing riskier projects. Other takeaways from the financial earnings call have been largely positive, as Sony reported that sales for its game and network services division were up and 3.8 million PS5 consoles were shipped during this quarter, which ended on September 30th. So let's look at the comments. Guitar Warrior 86 goes, what Sony learned. 1. Don't hire woke people. 2. Don't hire non gamers to develop a game. 3. Don't develop a game that only targets little kids that has gender identity issues.
Hmm.
4. Don't develop simple copy paste games. 5. Don't ask for too much money on rubbish FTP material game. What Sony still didn't learn. 1. PSN requirement to play a game is nonsense. 2. What's a video game? 3. Who plays a video game? 4. Why gamers play a game? 5. What made PlayStation 2 attractive? 6. What kind of video games PlayStation 2 era games are? Number 7. What's Sony's place in the video game industry? Number 8. What kind of industry PC gaming is? Number 9. How video game companies should operate. Number 10. What's the current social climate of this era? Number 11. Difference between USA and Europe. 12. What's culture? 13. How culture affect attraction and hate on video games. 14. What? How long is this list?
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, it's not much longer. 14. What's fun mean in video games? 15. Does people want to have fun or want to watch a video game? 16. What's the point of interactive story programs as a video game? 17. Why it's waste to support developers without giving them any direction and let them do what they want. 18. Why Death Stranding is a bad game and why Sony should have supported Hideo Kojima. 19. Why PlayStation 5 is useless.
Mm.
M4A5 goes, sure, they learned something from this. Just like they learned that forcing their account BS on PC is a great idea, especially for single player games. Oh, wait. And illegal underscore peanut goes, seeing that they're still going to release fair games and marathon, I would say they learned nothing. So, what do you think? What do you think Sony learned from the failure of Concord, if anything?
I don't think they learned not excuse my language, but jack shit. But you know, I mean now they have to rebound somehow, some way from all this $400 million project, you want to call it, of Concord. They can't recover all those losses. That's for certain. They're supposed to recover by reinitiated or re-release it somehow, some way on the servers of the, what's called Valve and all, with the Steam powered game, the game platform that is. But those just rumors at best, and it's a total loss for Sony. It's it's a
Yeah,
karma in my opinion.
I turned it off.
It's karma in my opinion. It's the fact that Sony's been backstabbing, been like cutthroating, and it sucks. It's just okay.
Yeah, one moment.
Sure, I'll also continue to talk. So yeah, about the Concord guys, it's a $400 million loss. It is what it is. It's karma. It sucks. It sucks for them.
So,
You get what you get. You get what you deserve. Like in the Joker movie.
yeah. Yeah, so Sony learned really nothing.
Yes.
Let's be honest. They've, so, yeah, I mean, they're still going to push their BS on it. I have to say, some of these questions, though, that they have to learn. What's a video game? Who plays a video game? Um, what's Sony's place in the video game industry? What's culture?
Mm.
some of these some of these points were hilarious.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, but what Sony learned, I don't think Sony learned anything, because this is the first time they're saying that they're saying, "Oh, well, we learned from the failures of this game." You didn't learn the failures. You're just trying to save face. I mean, Concord was a disaster, and most people knew it was going to be.
I guess for the next couple of years, Triple J, we'll have to wait and see what happens with Sony altogether because $400 million is nothing to sneeze at. I'm surprised no one has been like, no offense to my links again, but Agent 47. I mean, if I was the leader of this company of Sony, or whatever, I'll probably not just fire. I'll be going like dictator on the company and make sure the ship doesn't sink too hard or too much, like in Titanic. But it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. So I mean, most people know saw right through this though that Sony didn't learn anything. This was just a bunch of word salad to make it look like they did. Um, so yeah, so I mean, Sony, maybe those would be better questions to ask yourself. What's a video game? Why do gamers want to play a video game? What makes a video game fun?
Yeah, it looked good as a presentation. The trailers, the cut scenes they show on in the trailers and all. Some of it was funny. Some of it was just like okay, weird. But altogether, that's all it is. Just like an actual movie itself. That's about it. But then those are just cutscenes as well. And it's supposed to do every month or every few weeks cutscenes added to the game itself of the live service game of Concord. But obviously that's not happening anytime soon, if ever. So
Yeah. So this was just a bunch of this was basically PR.
yeah,
Because they're still going to try live service games, so they obviously haven't learned too much.
yeah. Live service games are meant for like long term and last for years. Games like Apex Legends and Fortnite, they found their place in the game industry as well as the gaming community. Once they add more live service games to it, you're going to saturate the market. It's going to dilute or go through that theory that, or you want to call it a law, actually, where the top 0.1% of all games, of all live service games, are making millions upon millions, and not billions of dollars, while the rest 99.9%, are trash, or they're not making money, or they're just not up to par with the current trends of gaming, if not the current aspects of gamers. It's I forgot the name of that law, or for that matter. I should have researched this earlier, but it's pretty cool to see that because obviously it's like with YouTubers. Some YouTubers that have been on for 15, 20 years get like 1,000 views on average for how many years still. But PewDiePie within not even like no offense to the guy, I'm just saying the fact that he was a self-made man, he gets 110 million subscribers in like not even 10 years. So it's worth it for him. But the rest of us, depends on who we talk to. It's like we got to claw our way up to the top. It's all about that that law. If I forgot the name of the law still. So yeah,
Yes. So I mean, do you have anything else to say? Because I'm pretty much done with this topic.
yeah. Concourse is pretty much dead. Move on, Sony. If you can survive for another couple years of its red tape, hopefully in 5 years from now you'll recover your 400 million, and that's it. Hopefully you do good because Sony is not just some normal typical company. They've been around for 50 years now, if not longer than that. Depending on how you look at it, because they were the ones that created the Walkman, the CD Walkman, everything. It was back in the 90s and 80s. So if they can make something like that and still recover from it, Concord is just a game, but it still has major losses. You can still recover from a new technology if you create one in the next couple of years or so. That's how I look at it. I like to show some optimism to Sony, even though I'm hearing negative things about Sony. I miss the Sony where of the PS2, of the Walkman, of the CD. It's CD player. So it's yeah. That's all I gotta say.
Okay. So time to move on.
Yes, indeed. Rest in peace.
Next. Okay. After that article, Netflix's Devil May Cry creator originally wanted to do a Dino Crisis anime.
Ooh.
Sorry, Dino Crisis fans.
Ah.
Listen closely. Do you hear that sound? It's the cry of hundreds of beleaguered Dino Crisis fans mourning the revival that could have been. AC Shanakar, the creator of Netflix's upcoming Devil May Cry show, and a filmmaker with a strong reputation for video game anime adaptations, Castlevania, Captain Laserhawk, revealed some interesting information in a recent X Twitter post. Specifically, when he first started talking to Capcom years ago, the sights weren't actually set on Devil May Cry. He began by sharing some quick thoughts on each of the three Dino Crisis games, praising the first two while conceding that the third lost that magic as it headed off Earth. Why am I telling you this? He continued. Because when I first went to Capcom in 2017, my mission was clear. I wanted to bring Dino Crisis back, but in awesome twist of fate, they saw me Devil May Cry instead. I didn't think DMC fans would even be on the DMC would even be on the table. It's an almost cosmically tragic twist of fate for Dino Crisis enthusiasts who have long waited another installment in the survival series created by Resident Evil's Shinji Mikami. Like, it's cool Devil May Cry fans can eat, but Dino Crisis fans stay in sad, I guess. Bemoaned an ex Twitter user. The last mainline Dino Crisis game came out all the way back in 2003, and rumors have swirled for years about a potential fourth game. There are a few reasons not to hold your breath, though. For one, Mikami said earlier this year that the popularity of Monster Hunter doesn't leave a lot of room for another Dino Crisis entry. Plus, Capcom recently tried its hand at another dinosaur focused game, Exoprimal, a multiplayer title that skipped adding new content just a year after its launch. Still, hope for a revival in anime form isn't completely extinct just yet, even if it's a little thin. While clarifying that he's currently committed to a very long term plan for Devil May Cry, Shanker added, but yes, one day perhaps I usually use my powers to resurrect Dino Crisis. Devil May Cry, at least, is still set for an April 2025 release date. For more, check out my profile of Shankar last year, where we talked as Captain Laserhawk for Ubisoft and Netflix, and much more. So let's look at the comments. ND West 14 goes, tried playing Dino Crisis recently. Those controls age so poorly, though. I'd love to see this get the remake treatment. Boons123 goes, a Resident Evil style remake of Dino Crisis would be amazing and sell like crazy. Mr. Burns Returns goes, the first one is a different beast entirely, was meant to be RE4, but an action game. If you treat it like that, that makes more sense. 3 and 5 are the greatest of all time. And the reply to that was, what are you talking about? He's talking about Dino Crisis. I'm assuming you are talking about Devil May Cry, which has 5 games, and Dino Crisis 3 was utter trash, so you must be talking about Dino. And Mr. Burns Returns responds, you're right. In my mind, though, he had left out the M in DMC. LOL. So, what? I know you're a big Dino Crisis fan.
I wasn't too big, but it's been a while. I played the Dino Crisis one, and I haven't played Dino Crisis two yet. I have a copy of Dino Crisis two somewhere in my room, if I remember correctly. So I'll try to do that. Try to play that one day with you guys again. It's a lot has happened for the last few days with me. It's But other than that, yeah, it's Netflix's Devil May Cry. I haven't seen the series yet. I heard it was all right to watch. Saw the trailer and all. Um, but Dino Crisis, the game, was good. I played the first one, no problem on Dreamcast. Unfortunately, my Dreamcast copy is so scratched up from I don't know what happened exactly what happened to the disc, but it's all scratched up to a point I can't play the game on the Dreamcast. So I got the PS1 version. So it's very hard after a good 3-4 hours of playing that game because gotta do the codes, gotta do this and that, the other thing, and I gotta turn it to an anime. It's supposed to turn it to anime, but you know it's not. There's no big fan base of Down Christ anymore. It's just us 35 plus to 45, 55-year-old guys, remember the good old days of Regina and then Dino Crisis, And after the third Dino Crisis, I've got the actual name of Dino Crisis 3, but that didn't go so well either. So that greatly, sharply decreased the popularity of the game severely after the third Dino Crisis. So it's the first two Dino Crisis were the best Dino Crisis, not only the best Dino Crisis games, also one of the best games of all time of the 2000s, in my opinion. So if they continue to do that, lead up to that kind of content, that kind of gaming content to us gamers, they might have a good sale after the fourth or fifth Dino Crisis if ever they do these fourth or fifth Dino Crisis games, if ever. It's so it's a very risky indeed to do Down Crisis the game right now, a remake of it at least. That so
Yeah. So I mean, it's a shame that Dino Crisis. Um, you know, Personally, I was more of a Turok Dinosaur Hunter guy
oh yeah,
than Dino Crisis. But yeah, it's a shame that we didn't get. It's a shame that that Dino Crisis didn't happen. Although they're not saying it wouldn't couldn't happen down the line. It's just plans of it happening right now. It would have to happen after Devil May Cry.
oh yeah,
A remake of Dino Crisis, though, that would be a that would be best because a lot of games that do play like the early PlayStation era, the early PlayStation One era, are tank controls for the games that had them.
yeah.
See Resident Evil One for examples.
So I got my copy of Resident Evil One.
So yeah, so I mean, it's a shame, but if Devil May Cry succeeds as anime, it just means Dino Crisis might be next.
Yeah, and
It's really gonna all focus on what happens. It's really gonna focus on the success or failure of the Devil May Cry anime if we get another franchise put in anime form.
and like I say, this Triple J, Regina, the character. I mean, she wasn't really obviously she wasn't really totally sexualized, but she's known for her red hair. So I see some good cosplays on Twitter by the name of Twitter user by the name of Teggy in short. That's her username on Twitter in short. That is, and she does a good Dino Regina Dino Crisis player cosplay. And if we get like actors and actresses together make a fan made movie one day. It doesn't matter who it is who comes up with the matter. That will create this nostalgia, bring up a player base over time and all, and then do the remake of Dino Crisis. That would be a good move on whoever has the rights to Dino Crisis, the game. So it's because I'm sure games like Metal Gear Solid. Like this fan made a movie called Metal Gear Solid Phantom of Liberty, I think it's called. It was way back in 2009, and they also make a sequel of it as of like at least 7 years ago, but they didn't come to be because the money issues that is. But the family movie came out back then. It was good, in my opinion. They made a good job. It's only like a $10,000 budget, something like that, of the movie that they made, the fan made movie. So if they can do something like that, whoever these Dino Crisis fans are, or just people who know about Dino Crisis, should do that. If you ever hear our voices out here, so
All right. So ready to move on?
yeah, I'm ready to move on. Yeah,
All right. Next, uh, a reignited trilogy touches down on Game Pass tomorrow. Straight Fire. Microsoft has a little treat for your Monday blues. A Purple Dragon is on the way. Specifically, Spyro Reignited Trilogy will come to Xbox Game Pass Standard and Ultimate tomorrow, November 12th. The package contains the first three games in the franchise, Spyro the Dragon, Ripto's Rage, and Year of the Dragon, and gives them a visual overhaul. Considering Game Pass additions for November were just revealed last week, Microsoft's team's been hiding Spyro Reignited Trilogy under its wings as a surprise. It's the latest game from the company's Activision Blizzard acquisition to join the subscription service. That acquisition also led to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 launching day one on Game Pass. So far, the latest entry in the first person shooter franchise is off to a record setting debut. Black Ops 6's availability on the subscription service is also helping bring back lapsed players, according to the game's creative director, Miles Leslie. As for the Purple Dragon Spyro Reignited Trilogy, launched in 2018 for PS4 and Xbox One. Then a year later, in 2019, the remade Spyro games came to Nintendo Switch and PC. The original games were exclusive to PlayStation between 1998 to 2000, with the Purple Dragon serving as a mascot for the Sony system at the time. For more, check out GameSpot's Spyro Reignited Trilogy review. You can also look at what games are leaving Game Pass this month. There's no comments. Let's see what games are leaving Game Pass in November. Just um, just scrolling down to the list. Okay, of course they don't. So it's Somerville, Persona. These are the games leaving Game Pass. Somerville, Persona 5 Tactica, Like a Dragon, The Man Who Erased His Name, Like a Dragon, Ishin, Goat Simulator, Dungeons 4, Dicey Dungeons, and that's it. So, what do you think of Spyro Reignite Trilogy coming to Game Pass, or it came to Game Pass on November 12th?
That surprised me at first. I was like, wow, I saved myself a few bucks easily just by if I give me time to play these trilogy games. Because I played the Spiral the Dragon demo disc back in 1998. I still have the disc to this day of the demo disc and all. And it was pretty good when I was a kid. No, I don't know if how challenging it was exactly back then. I can't remember everything about the game playing of that specifically, but it's colorful. It's animated very well. The demo disc, and then when they did the Reignite trilogy, not only for Crash Bandicoot, also for this one, Spyro the Dragon, I was like, wow, that's like, a good deal. To make them remade, and then bring it from the ground up in a sense of gameplay, and it's still challenging to this day, especially the first Spyro the Dragon and the first Crash Bandicoot game as well. Speaking of Crash Bandicoot, I'm still stuck on that fucking, excuse my language again, the castle level, so I can't imagine how Spyro is like that with one of their games, with one of their levels. So yeah, it's a blessing, I have to say, that Naughty Dog, whoever owns the rights to Spyro and Crash now, did a good job in doing that. Bringing these games to the forefront for today's gamers.
Right. Yeah. Good. This is what people have wanted. I don't know why it took over a year. Um, but yeah, adding Spyro the Reignite trilogy to Game Pass is something Microsoft should be doing. Hint, Microsoft, do this with more titles that you now own. Um, but
Uh huh.
anyway,
Oh yeah.
um, yeah, I played Spyro the Dragon. I had the demo for the PlayStation of the first game. Um, I enjoyed it. I always meant to get Spyro the Dragon. I never the full game. I did have it one time when I was a game collector. But I do plan to get the games back, at least the PlayStation originals.
Oh yeah.
But not through the Reignited trilogy. I'm going to get them where I have the physical copy. Um, but yeah, if you're a big fan of the Spyro or want to try out the Reignited trilogy, you cannot if you have Game Pass now. Um, and yeah, I have good memories of playing the demo of the first Spyro the Dragon. Came on a demo with other games like Medieval, Metal Gear Solid. Um, what else? Tomb Raider. I forget which Tomb Raider it was. Uh, A Bug's Life, etc., etc. Um,
Virtual
but
Fighter,
yeah,
maybe.
huh?
I'm sorry. I was just thinking of random things. Virtual Fighter, but that's nothing to do with Spyro necessarily, or the gaming company behind Spyro. Excuse me.
So yeah, so I mean, yeah, so these games, yeah, if you never got a chance to try them, or you wanted to try them with the visual overhaul, they're on Game Pass. You don't need an Ultimate subscription to play them because they are coming to Game Pass Standard. Um, I guess not Core though, so you might. So, but yeah, they're there to try. Um, Anything else to add, or ready to move on?
I'm ready to move on.
All right. Next, Ubisoft is facing lawsuit after the crew was removed from platforms. The company removed the game after a decade citing license fees. Ubisoft is facing a proposed class action lawsuit over its decision to shut down the crew earlier this year, a decade after its initial release. Two players submitted the filing before the California court claiming that Ubisoft duped customers into purchasing the crew without the knowledge that servers could be shut down, making the online game unplayable. When the shutdown was announced in December last year, Ubisoft offered refunds to players, but only those who recently purchased the game. Given the age of the game, a lot of players were unable to receive theirs. Imagine you buy a pinball machine, and years later you enter your den to go play it, only to discover that all the paddles are missing, the pinball and bumpers are gone, and the monitor that proudly displayed your unassailable high score is removed. the plaintiff's lawyer wrote in a lawsuit that was uploaded by Polygon. Turns out the pinball manufacturer decides to come into your home, get the insides of the pinball machine, and remove your ability to play the game that you bought and thought you owned. The lawsuit claims players were duped in two ways. First, by allegedly misleading players into thinking they were buying a game when they were merely licensing it, even if a player bought the physical disc. Second, Ubisoft falsely represented that the cruise files were on those physical discs to access free, and that the discs weren't simply a key for the game. The lawsuit adds that Ubisoft is violating California consumer protection laws. This is just another addition to development of gamers not realizing what they're getting when they're purchasing a game, which is more often than not the license and not the game itself. That difference is something that platforms like Steam is trying to make more apparent when you buy a digital game. Ubisoft declared its shutdown its servers after a decade due to server infrastructure and licensing constraints. Both the 2018 sequel, simply titled The Crew 2, and the latest entry in the franchise, The Crew Motorfest, will remain unaffected after the servers go dark. So let's look at comments. There's only a couple, so I'll just read both of them. Illegal underscore peanut goes, with how badly Ubisoft is being run nowadays, I don't think they're going to have any money to run any servers for 5 more years. And Adraden goes, good. I have the crew and DLCs. Well, I don't know how much that's going to help you, but if it's the first one. But what do you think about this lawsuit being brought to Ubisoft?
That's a good thing right there because the crew now, last time I checked, I was able to play about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Now it's like no longer there on the Xbox, not only the Xbox store, but also on my account. So, and I could have sworn I at least one copy of the crew. I don't have the physical copy, obviously, but usually if I were to go on the Game Pass or whatever, that's something different altogether. But this is a game that was like bought by cash or by a credit card or something, and you pay back the credit card after a while, so you definitely own the game after a while too. So in a sense, you want to be that um, specific and minuscule about the matter. But yeah, man, it sucks. Like the companies that are behind games like The Crew and all, they should be getting away with this stuff. And I'm glad that California, even though it's one of the biggest, it's like 1/10 of the world's economy in a sense, still going against this behemoth of Ubisoft, we're call it like that, because if it was any other gamer, I'd be pissed too if I can't play The Crew. It may not be the best game to some gamers like myself in a sense, but it's enjoyable to play because it's not as stressful as like playing Apex or even Halo's ranked fucking system. Excuse my language, but still, it's ridiculous. Like I want to play a good game that's very relaxing, very purposeful too, and I get progress, and it's not about competition 100% all the way through, and about getting a heart attack anytime soon as a 37-year-old gamer like myself. So, I don't want that kind of feeling. I want to feel like I'm like 6, 7, 10 years old, 12 years old, playing games for fun, like Crash Bandicoot, for example. It's frustrating, yeah, but the crew was not that frustrating as Crash Bandicoot. So it's kind of like it's like a relaxing just chilling type of game, like that of Beyond Eyes, or it was a very unpopular game to most people because it was only lasted for about 4 hours, 5 hours, but you do get a 200 gamer score for that game, Beyond Eyes, but that's the situation of itself to deal with. But yeah, it's Ubisoft. They'll deserve my money after a while if this is the case. Well, you're gonna remove my games from about Rayman or what's it called, the other one, Child of Light, if they oversee that game. Last time I checked, so it's like also too. What if I own a physical copy of Child of Light or any other Ubisoft game physically? You're gonna come to my house and take that 5 years from now, 20 years from now, after I bought it in cash, if not credit card or even debit card. It's amazing how these companies get away with this stuff, and there's no consumer protections to us gamers yet. What's kind of strange, so we as consumers have a right to be informed of these policies or whatever's going on in the gaming company or the gaming industry as a whole. And if you don't tell us that, then we have every right to fight for it, for that copy, or right for that service. And if not, we go elsewhere. No big deal. And then they'll lose billions of dollars. They lost how much in the stock market recently? Ubisoft. I think it was like down to like what, $5, $10 per stock. something like that. I sounds like layman terms and says something explain this, but still, it's like, Ubisoft doesn't learn, like, and Sony doesn't learn with their mistakes too. So it's going to be a huge gaming crash in the future, most likely. But it's going to be for the big behemoth, big gaming companies like Ubisoft, Sony, EA, Activision, you name it. And if they don't do nothing quick to be pro gamer or pro consumer at least, it's all good. You're finished. So,
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, that pinball machine example is pretty spot on.
oh yeah,
Let's use Spyro the Dragon since we talked about the Reignite trilogy just before. If I buy Spyro the Dragon 1, 2, and 3, let's say from an eBay seller or whatever, um, is Microsoft going to come into my house when they no longer want Spyro played at all and going to take away those games? No, of course not, because it would not work out well for the person that tried to break into my house to steal those games. Um, but it's the same thing. I mean, people were under the assumption that when they purchased a game that they went purchased physically would be playable even after servers were shut down, because people were like, wait a minute, why are the servers affecting the single player game
oh yeah,
um, mode? Even if the multiplayer was unplayable, why is the single player mode being affected? That doesn't happen in other games. Like when they shut down the servers for Bloodstone 007, one of the best James Bond games I've ever played.
oh wow,
Um, the multiplayer was fun, but it was shut down. That didn't affect the single player mode. You can still play the single player mode today if you wanted,
oh yeah.
unless they've done something, unless they've done some kind of update to that. But yeah, so I mean, I hope this lawsuit not only goes through. I hope this lawsuit wins. I hope Ubisoft does get taken to the cleaners. Um, because this is, like I said, this is one of the biggest drawbacks of gaming in the modern era. And otherwise, we are just better off um, building up our retro collections, whether they be seventh gen, sixth gen, fifth gen, whatever they be,
Oh yeah.
and saying sayonara to modern gaming until people realize, until game companies can guarantee that when gamers spend their hard-earned money on a game, they're gonna have it for as long as they want until they decide to get rid of it. Not when the game company decides that they no longer want to support it.
Hmm.
The only game that this is that this doesn't shouldn't apply to games to are games that are multiplayer only. Um, because obviously when the servers go down, it's a multiplayer game only. There's no single player mode. Okay, sucks that the servers go down, but they go down. But a game company is not going to shut down the multiplayer servers unless they become too expensive to maintain with not enough drawback, with not enough revenue coming in.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, it's a shame that this happened to the crew. Um, but good. I hope Ubisoft gets taught the lesson that they deserve to learn, which is when you charge for a game, don't you don't get to decide when people have to give it up.
Unless it's for free, I can understand that. Especially if it's like a free to play game. That I can
Yeah,
understand fully, like the Apex Legends, Fortnite, PUBG. Oh, PUBG was you had to pay for it at one point, so I had to pay for PUBG back years back. So I'm an exception. But if it's for free for everyone, you might as well understand your rights to that as well too. Because as long as they inform you, no matter what the price is, or it's for free or for even $100, especially spend how much money on the skins, especially if the crew has something like that in the game, especially on multiplayer, you have a right to be informed what's going on with your game. So
right. Yeah. Anything else to add, or I need to move on?
that's all I had to say for the time being.
Good. All right. Next, Bethesda workers go on strike against Microsoft. After failing to reach a new deal with Microsoft, Bethesda's QA workers are staging a brief strike and demanding better terms. Last year, quality assurance workers at Bethesda and ZeniMax Studios formed ZeniMax Workers United, the largest certified video game union in the United States. Now that union is putting its collective power to the test in a brief strike against Bethesda and ZeniMax's parent company, Microsoft. ZeniMax Workers United have been attempting to negotiate a deal with Microsoft over remote work requirements while also limiting the number of outsourced QA workers who can be brought in on Bethesda's projects. The union didn't say who Microsoft is outsourcing QA work to, but accused the company of ignoring requests to negotiate. They have continually given us their first proposal again and again, and it's become obvious that our different mobilization tactics have not worked, QA test lead Wyana Eckner told Inverse. This one day strike was called in an attempt to make Microsoft more receptive to addressing the union's concerns. Striking isn't fun or ideal, but there's a satisfaction in having a concrete physical action we can do to fight for better work conditions, noted senior QA tester Juniper Dowell. Hopefully, we can convince them to stop dragging their feet and meet us at the table. According to Dowell, many of the QA testers were hired during the pandemic when remote work was more prevalent. Microsoft's current requirement call for QA workers to be in the office 2 days a week, while the union is asking for a more flexible remote policy. After the strike began, Microsoft issued a statement affirming the company's willingness to listen and address their concerns at the bargaining table. If the one day strike fails to motivate Microsoft to make any concessions or changes, it could lead to a longer strike in the future. But for now, Bethesda's upcoming games, including Indiana Jones and The Great Circle, are not expected to be delayed by the strike. So let's look at comments. Iceword underscore Frostmore goes, they need to be in the office 2 days a week and they are complaining that they need more flexibility. This is really getting out of hand, I say. If they don't want to do their job, fire the lot and get new ones. If someone doesn't like the requirements of their workplace, they should just quit and look for another job. Simple as that. Mogan said in response, I'm guessing the issue is probably that a lot of the QA workers hired during COVID aren't actually near the office they need to come into, or were but moved somewhere cheaper when remote work was fully from home. That's the issue a lot of tech companies out west are having trying to get employees back in the office. People moved out of the Bay Area because it's so freaking expensive to live there and have put down roots somewhere homes are affordable. Icewood underscore Frostmore said, the answer would still be the same. Think of it like you working for a place and they decide to move the office to a different city. Are you going to complain that they need to stay where they are? The problem is that a lot of times now people forget they work for a company, the company doesn't work for them. I don't see the issue if someone is not satisfied with their job for whatever reason, instead of complaining, just quit and get a job with a different company that better fits your needs. How do you feel about this strike? How do you feel about this strike? Do you think the workers are justified or the Microsoft is justified?
If I recall correctly, Microsoft bought Bethesda, right?
Yes.
So it's it's Microsoft's fault for what's going on through the company Bethesda as well too, especially they're directly involved with buying them. It's I got to do something about that matter, Microsoft. Now, as far as the workers concerned, if they have like unlivable working conditions, or they're not being paid well, or not paid enough to get by in life, with livelihood bills and stuff like that, I would also tell these companies. I used to work for companies like you want to call them corporations, but also too the fast food companies in regards to being corporations too. So it's all depends on the managers at the time too for handling what's going on with the workers, and if managers are mismanaging, then it's you have to get a new management. And if it's the same with the workers, if they're horrible workers or not giving the good product for how many decades now, I've been hearing that Bethesda games like Fallout 3 and 4, and especially, they have a lot of bugginess and incomplete experiences, you want to call them like that. Even Starfield, it was like a lackluster for not most gamers, but a good portion of gamers, especially the DLC that came out back over 2 months ago, if I remember correctly. So it's not entirely everyone's it's entirely everyone's fault for both Bethesda and recently Microsoft for making lame games, you want to call it like that. It's because the workers are not given a good morale in the company to make better games over time, and it's getting worse and worse for the quality of games going on with AAA games for the last 7 years now, almost 8 years now. And it is what it is with Bethesda. I mean, I never really was a big fan of Bethesda games like that, Fallout, whatever. And when I did play Fallout 76, I was like, damn, this game, like the first hour is not so bad of the story and all, but after that, it turned out to be a crappy product, in my opinion. And it's like, these workers, these developers, I want to call them too, they're not given a direction to do better with their games. And that's not necessarily the workers' fault per se. I mean, they hired the best workers, and I kept on to them for a while. But but all this layoffs for the last 2 years we've been talking about, it's catching up to everyone, both the worker and as well the developer and the corporations, as well as the industry as a whole. So it's only a matter of time when people are going to revolt, both the gamers as well as the developers or the workers behind making the games start to go a little bit rogue, if you want to call it like that, go rebel. And consumers, like the gamers and all, will vote with their wallets or support with their wallets by not paying for Bethesda games or any game that's crappy. And then the developers and workers will just find work for, other companies that are very secure. And like we said before, as a millennial, us millennials, we go from job to job, place to place for some of us. That's our shtick as a lifestyle. While the older people, like the baby boomers, want to be have social issues about the matter. It's they keep their jobs, stay there for 30, 40 years, depending upon how much they put effort into that company. Because the companies are not loyal anymore. It's all about the bottom dollar, the bottom line, and so when there's something has to give, so
Yeah. I do have a mixed opinion on this. If these quality assurance workers were hired when they said, and the requirements was you don't have to live near the studio, you don't have to, or you don't have to live near the office. You, if they were hired during COVID and they said, this is fully remote work from home, you can't change that now.
mm-hmm.
If they were there before the COVID pandemic and said, listen, yeah, we're coming back to this office at least a couple days a week, and you are expected to be there. Then the company's in the right. Um, if you hire someone who lives, say, in let's see, if someone lives in Salt Lake City, Utah, but the company's in Los Angeles, California, the person's not from Salt Lake City is not going to be able to get to the office in California, and they're not going to rent out an expensive, shitty apartment just to keep this job.
Indeed.
So I mean, that's the way I feel. If you worked and were able to attend the office beforehand, and they want you to go back, you have to go back. If you were hired and when you were hired, the understanding was you would never have to be in the office because you're a remote worker from far away, too far to make it, whether it's a few cities over or a few states over, then then you're in the right because you were told a physical attendance would not be a requirement.
Oh yeah.
That's so. I mean, that's the way I look at it. It's basically what were you told when you were hired, unless they said something. But I'm pretty sure, like for the workers who were there before COVID and who were there physically, at least most of the work week, if not a couple days a week, I'm pretty sure they told those people this is going to be temporary working from home.
Yeah, it's
If they said this was the new direction going forward, then you can't. Then no. Then the company's in the wrong.
yeah,
But if they
it's
said, well, listen, we have to shut down temporarily, we would have to shut down temporarily, so we're going to work from home so we can continue business. The company's told you, hey, we would be coming back to the office eventually.
oh yeah, it's yeah, it's a shame that people have to live in crappy apartments or just trying to make a living that's under the poverty line. Depends on what kind of work you were doing for these companies. But at this rate, though, at this time of our culture or our working culture in America's history, it's to a point where people can't live lavish lifestyles anymore or try to pursue a lavish lifestyle at all because the economy is not the same as it once was 25, 30 years ago. There was at one point you can make a hard work or hard earning and get to the top of things and make lots of money for a company, whether it's a game company or just some fast food company. Like if you're a manager at McDonald's, whatever, you can become a top paid manager for the region of your area, and you get lots of money for it. But now these days, now everything's automated. There's the AI chat GPT has been involved for the last couple of years at least. Publicly, that is, directly to the public, and people are losing hope or losing the ability to keep up with all this technology. And it's like, you know, AI is taking over, and these people are like, what we're going to do with our livelihood, That's why, not trying to be political still, but Andrew Yang, the 2020 candidate for the United States presidential elections, before the nominations and all, explained about having a UBI, and that people can still be creative and still do stuff for a living while collecting this UBI, the Universal Basic Income. So if the gaming companies can't make it for these workers, cannot sustain a proper payment, then at least the UBI will be a difference maker for some these people who are working very hard in life. So
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with UBI because too many people would just go from a welfare life to a UBI life. Um,
I see.
so that's not the answer. That's not the solution. The solution is if you agree to be in the office, then it's your responsibility to be in that office. If you were hired under strict terms that you were never expected to be in the office because of how far you live, then it's up to the company to continue honoring the terms that they gave you when you first joined.
Hmm.
So, it's and I mean, so yeah, that's the way I look at it. If you were able to attend the office before COVID, you should be able to attend there afterwards, especially since COVID is nothing more than common flu nowadays. But if like I said, if you were given and they said location doesn't matter because this is strictly work from home, they can't tell you now you need to be in the office.
I see.
Anything else to add or ready to move on?
I just want to say that even though I've never been involved in the game industry as a worker of any sort for gaming companies, like a developer or engineer or audio editor or just an editor in general speaking, I could understand that feeling where it's like you want security with wherever you're working at, and if the companies are giving that to you, then there's going to be a huge, not revolt, but it's going to be a point where people are going to be like, they had it and they still are going to disarray, and this is what we see right now for a good 2 years now, and it sucks. It's all because of the fact of the pandemic. Everything was good prior to the pandemic. If you think about it, we had President Trump in office for the first time, and the economy was good. Our economy was hustling, bustling, depending on what you were doing. And don't get me wrong, we still do that to this day to some degree. It depends on where you are in the country. But now it's harder to do that than ever because of the inflation and all. And last thing we need is gaming companies to collapse for the sake of profits. It sucks. That's what happened back. Over the last 2 years. So, so something has to give, and I hopefully one day all this stuff will end, or at least will reduce severely. We'll look back on history, especially the gaming industry, and be like, hey, let's not do that again. Let's try to give the best quality games, very interactive, very good quality, no SJWs, no LGBT, not no LGBT, but very little as possible, because it's the majority of gamers are straight, gamers. They're not. You're gonna find, of course, over time that might change, but still, it's like, that's like a predominantly male oriented, gaming atmosphere. It's can't change that severely over time so quickly, So it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Uh, yeah. So anything? I'm ready to move on. Are you?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to move on.
Uh, okay. We only got two more stories. Despite buying Activision Blizzard for $69 billion just last year, Microsoft definitely want to be in the market for more video game acquisitions.
Jesus
Hey,
Christ.
Big Spencer. Ugh. Microsoft is still in the market for acquisitions despite having uh, ciphered out $69 billion or $75 billion for Call of Duty maker Activision Blizzard last year. In an interview with Bloomberg, Microsoft gaming boss Phil Spencer said he's up for buying more companies, although cautioned that nothing's imminent and big deals are off the table for now. So if Microsoft opens the wallet once again, what might it spend its billions on? Deals that add geographic diversity, including in Asia, might be worthwhile, Spencer said. Apparently, Microsoft's eyeing up buying another mobile company. Microsoft picked up Candy Crush maker King as part of the Activision Blizzard acquisition. We definitely want to be in the market, and when we can find teams and technology and capability that add to what we're trying to do in gaming at Microsoft, absolutely we will keep our heads up, Spencer said. Microsoft is still busy absorbing Activision Blizzard employees, Spencer added, which is why very large deals are probably impossible right now. But that leaves the door open for major acquisitions in the future. Just one moment. Okay, never mind.
Mm-hmm.
Spencer and company will probably find future acquisitions easier to get over the line after Donald Trump becomes U.S. president in January. Microsoft faced a tough battle with the Federal Trade Commission over the Activision Blizzard deal, a battle it ultimately won. Wall Street is said to be foaming at the mouth with all the possible mergers and acquisitions that may now go through with Trump as president. The focus, it seems, is fleshing out its mobile offering ahead of launching an app store of its own. But Microsoft's App Store and Google Play rival has suffered a number of delays, with staff still trying to figure out a plan. According to Bloomberg, Microsoft still doesn't have an effective way to get its own store on mobile phones, delaying the launch further. Microsoft's gaming ambitions continue despite cutting an eye-watering 2,550 staff just this year alone, with Xbox mobile game development teams recently hit hard. So let's go to the comments.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Chloe Low 116 goes, while we should all expect him to say that, it's also what has been the problem in the Xbox division for several years. Rather than settling down and focusing on giving games solid and amazing games, their focus remains on quantity. That's just not a great look. Mikey had 815 goes, yep, they're still chasing this eventual constant stream of high quality content that never seems to come. As more studios come under the umbrella, it feels like all that changes is the games feel more rushed and disposable as Game Pass fodder. Shiny new releases to get people to sub with no real substance behind them. And Metal Gear Sony goes, this tape doesn't make any sense to me. They're wanting joke for a decade has been Xbox has no games, but all of a sudden they're focused on quantity over quality. I get your hate, Xbox to death, but at least pick a lane.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think of Phil Spencer basically playing Mr. Moneybags, wanting to buy more companies?
Yeah, we talked about Phil Spencer about at least how many podcasts ago, not too far long ago. So you hate Phil Spencer to a great extent. I kind of respect the guy. I don't love the guy, obviously, but I respect him, being where he is, being head of Xbox and all for the last 10 years now, if not more so. More power to him because obviously, I wish I had a kind of demeanor or position, because obviously we at the top, whether if it is the top of Xbox brand, you basically call the shots and you are not entirely call the shots, but you have oversight of calling the shots to some degree with along with Microsoft. So it's he has power of what to do or not to do with the brand. But at this rate, he's being too how's that call that term? Too smug with himself, in my opinion. It's like you bite off more than you chew. And they still haven't made any new games as far as for this year since what's it called, Redfall and not Redfall. That's not last year, right? Redfall was last year, 2023, right?
Maybe 2 years ago.
Damn, as time flies. And then the most recent one, Starfield, the DLC package, whatever it is, back in September. So that's it for this year as far as like the original exclusive to Xbox type of games for the Xbox brand. And at this rate though, guys like who exposes this fanboy wars shit going on, excuse me, but It's oh no, it's Alex. I've been listening to the guy, not listening, but I've been watching this guy for at least a good couple months now, and he's telling the truth though. The Microsoft is biting off more than they can chew. All they try to do is try to make money in a short term, but not thinking about the long term. And they just spent $70 billion on Activision Blizzard alone, and you still want to buy more shit? I mean, come on, man. No offense to Phil Spencer or to Xbox or Microsoft, whatever it was, or directly in charge of these acquisitions. You guys are not you're not doing much in the long term. You're gonna kill your company, or at least the Xbox brand. At least you gotta sell that company most likely sooner or later because of the failures of games that are not going so well. And it's not gonna go so well for Microsoft as a whole. And the Xbox may have to be diversified, but at the same time, we should have listened to Dreamcast guy. No offense to him, at first, but he's told some truth too, to some extent that Xbox may be dead as an actual console, but the Xbox services they're trying to spread out. So what
Hold
it?
hold that thought. Hold. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but hold that thought about consoles. We got one more story after this.
Oh sure, okay,
But go on.
okay, yeah, sure, all right. So yeah, it's eventually Microsoft going to have to, you know, improvise, and that's what they've been doing for a few months now. They're trying to do Xbox everywhere on every form of media or device, and it's okay at first, but then us gamers, or you want to call us hardcore gamers, or the niche gamers, the ones that buy the consoles, buy the actual brand for the sake of the console for the games. When we were kids, that was a big thing back 20 years ago to buy the exclusives on that Xbox brand. But like Alex says, that's not the case anymore. It's everywhere. Everyone's everywhere on every platform to some degree with different devices or services of those devices. So it's only a matter of time where Microsoft got to, back off the buy-in and just stick with what they have, and then create new good IPs, new good stories, games, projects, you name it, whatever that comes first. It's then they can do what they want to do for the next God knows how many decades or years at least. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, you pretty much said what I was gonna say. Um, I don't hate Phil Spencer. I hate the decisions he's making. I think he's lost the plot, but that doesn't mean I hate him.
Right.
But yeah, again, this story shows exactly what's wrong with Xbox at this point. You got so many games in the Activision Blizzard merger. I could, I'm actually gonna just start this because I don't want to use the same two examples over and over.
Understood.
So I want to just bring up franchises acquired in Microsoft Blizzard.
And they also
Um,
bought Candy Crush too, as well.
yep, Blizzard merger.
That's no. It may be like a small game to the average gamer, but the overall market is a big deal.
Yeah, so so I do have I'm just going to go over the franchises: Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, StarCraft, Diablo, Spyro the Dragon, Candy Crush Saga, Hearthstone, Guitar Hero, Lost Vikings, Rebel Riders, Diamond Diary Saga, and Bubble Witch 3 Saga. All these among its assets are ownership of Call of Duty, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, Overwatch, and Candy Crush. And what has Phil Spencer done with it? He's bought one game from Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3 at the time, Modern Warfare 3 reboot to Game Pass. I'm assuming Black Ops 6 is on Game Pass.
Yes, it is.
Um, and Spyro the Reignited trilogy is coming to Game Pass, or it's on Game Pass by the time we record this. Um, and we and keep in mind that's not the full list of IPs they own. That's just a big chunk of them. Because I do believe because they didn't say True Crime or Tony Hawk, but I remember that being on the list also.
Okay.
And the thing is, what you should be doing is you should be going to take all the console games, all the console franchises, make sequels, make a reboot, Put the older games on Game Pass. When it comes to the mobile games, don't buy any more mobile games on control mobile games until you have your mobile market set up and you can put the mobile games out there. Why is this such a hard strategy for Phil Spencer to figure out? Now you want to buy more games, franchises, and lay more people off of Microsoft?
Hmm. Oh, we can't afford to, but we bought $7 billion company. That's nice.
Yes. So I mean, like I said, Phil Spencer, he's completely lost the plot. If he had studios working on either sequels or reboots of these franchises, or at least some of them, and if the old games were being added to Game Pass, and if the Microsoft mobile market was doing good, then okay, then I would say yeah, look for more companies to buy or more gaming studios to buy. But you're not doing that. So why so it's just a waste of money and you just get and just developers or other office staff are going to have to pay the price when they lose their job to cover the cost because Phil Spencer apparently doesn't know how to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else to add or ready to move on?
Yeah, we move on.
All right. Well, don't worry, we're going to bash Phil Spencer again.
Oh yeah, most likely.
In three, two, one. Xbox promises more gaming consoles in the future and throws shade at PS5 Pro. Microsoft doesn't think an Xbox Series X Pro could justify its price tag. Okay, this sounds like you say yes on one hand and no on the other.
Mm.
Microsoft's latest holiday marketing campaign is all about how you can play Xbox games even without the actual console. This is an Xbox, the slogan reads, as it lists laptops, smartphones, VR headsets, and other platforms agnostic devices. But despite doubling down the virtues of Play Anywhere, the company is still committed to shipping new Xboxes in the future, even if it decided to skip the pricey PS5 Pro style mid generation refresh. We'll definitely do more consoles in the future and other devices, Microsoft's gaming CEO Phil Spencer told Rolling Stone in a new interview. While not shocking, the reassurance comes after this fall's big holiday Xbox console exclusive, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, announced a PS5 port coming just a few months later in the spring. The multi platform push has had some fans doubting the platform's future, especially when Spencer says things like there's no red line when it comes to bringing first party games to rival consoles, including the next Halo. Xbox President Sarah Bond previously teased that Microsoft's next Xbox would be the largest technical leap players have ever seen in a console generation. And this week, Spencer confirmed that the company is working on a dedicated PC gaming handheld, though it's still a few years off. Previous leaks pegged a new Xbox console coming in late 2026, and while plans can always change, it certainly sounds like Microsoft remains all in on hardware for the next 5-10 years, even if the success of those devices aren't ultimately propelled first and foremost by exclusive franchises like The Elder Scrolls and Gears of War. And what of Microsoft skipping the mid cycle refresh? Unlike last time when the Xbox Series X and the PS4 Pro went head to head, Sony's spiffed up $700 gaming rig has launched uncontested this year. Spencer's answer is that the improvements just don't warrant an incremental update this time around. We think about hardware that can create unique value for our player or creators on our platform, he told Rolling Stone. We don't need to do incremental hardware for our own benefit. He continued, does a new device really give you a unique experience on screen in some way? It's less like the old days going from the original Xbox to 360. That was standard definition to high definition. Now it's harder to show the benefits. That echoed a comment he made to Bloomberg this week as well about reaching new audiences. We're not going to grow the market with 81,000 consoles, Spencer said. Those implied shots at the PS5 Pro come after months of debate about whether Sony's second most expensive console ever seems worth it for slightly better resolutions at higher frame rates. While experts and die-hard enthusiasts are singing the praises of the device for improving games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, others have noted that even being a little too far away from the screen or dealing with daytime glare from Windows all but cancels out that upgrade. Of course, if Sony is struggling to showcase meaningful improvements with new hardware that's $300 more than the all digital PS5 was at launch, how exactly are we going to get the largest technical leap you've ever seen out of the next Xbox at an affordable price? Maybe machine learning, generative AI, and cloud computing, which Microsoft is currently all in on, will provide a unique solution to that dilemma. Okay, so, um, yeah, what do you think about Phil Spencer saying they're all in on consoles still, but then throwing shade at the PS5 Pro?
Well, I mean, everyone's trying to make some money off of selling consoles these days because it's the holidays right now. So both Xbox as well as Sony, PlayStation, all it's and I don't hear much from Nintendo Switch as much. I mean, yes, the Switch has a market for themselves, they're their own class of itself, so they're doing good. But all by themselves, that is Nintendo, and it's I mean, yeah, I'm okay with them selling the consoles and all, but they're not selling at a cheaper price, especially the older models of Xbox Series X and S, as well as the original PS5, respectively, of these companies. They're not doing the same thing they did back 10 years ago, 15 years ago with Xbox 360 and going into Xbox One and PS4 going to PS3 going to PS4. It's not the same market like it used to be. I don't know what they're doing, but they're acting stupid in my opinion between these companies altogether. And like I said about Phil Spencer, he being smug and all, and the president, our current president of Sony, I don't know what he's doing, but these guys are not really, no, they're not thinking well, in my opinion. It sounds like because of all people, Dr. Games, how dare you? You're not, you're some nobody on Xbox Live. You're just a nobody on the YouTube community. Who are you to tell me that? Like, I attended some business classes, my friends. I attended business mathematics classes and marketing classes. Like, this is not some easy, I mean, hard thing to do. It's about appealing to your customers, to to gamers. And if you're not going to do that well, then you're going to lose out, and you're going to, you'll be out of business. So I don't know what else to tell these guys or these gamers. You want to call them that, depends on who you talk to among the gaming community, So
Yeah, I mean, so what Phil Spencer is doing is, he has no idea what he's doing. Because I mean, I the only thing I agree with him on is jumping from console to console is not going to help when as the um, upgrades gets harder and harder to recognize. I
mm-hmm.
agree with him on that. I already said the PS5 Pro is a waste of money, and you're just egging on bad behavior if you buy the PS5 Pro when you could just buy a PS5 for cheaper. Especially when the PS5 has so few exclusive games anyway. But um, at the same time, he says he's still in the console market and he's still going to release more consoles. Um, Phil, you told everyone that you lost the console war. You waved the white flag in the console war.
And it's on record too.
Why would anyone put? You know how many people you burned off um, from the fan base when you did that? Do you have any idea how many people? I mean, it's this. I mean, let's go over the story of Sega. After the Sega Genesis, they said Sega CD was going to be the hot new thing. We're going to have games on CD now, and it didn't work. They said the 32X was going to be the future. That didn't work. They said Sega Saturn was going to be the next evolution in games, and that didn't work. Then when the Dreamcast came out, which could have been the next evolution, people were like, "Yeah, Sega, you already got my money." Um,
The boy card
and if
wolves.
if Microsoft isn't careful, Microsoft could be next in that gaming console market, and I don't want to see it just be between Sony and Nintendo.
Indeed.
But when you send new games out in their first year to PlayStation, as well as saying so people can play anywhere, did you forget what made Sea of Thieves a good idea to send to PS5? People said you're not going to get any more sales from Xbox customers. The only way Sea of Thieves is going to generate more sales is if you get it on PS5, Nintendo Switch, or PC if it wasn't on PC already. So that's why Sea of Thieves, because Sea of Thieves was also an older game. So, but sending Indiana Jones and the Great Circle at 4 months after it comes out on Xbox to PlayStation, that's awful.
Yeah, it used to be 1 year for time exclusives.
At
Now it's
least 1 year. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have done it until I saw sales declining. And I'm like, well, if sales are declining or sales are dead on Microsoft only, then we'll go to Sony and say, see if they want it. Um, and if they don't, then that's their problem. But
yeah,
also, Phil Spencer's judgment on game franchises hasn't been that great. This is the guy that passed up on Spider Man and Spider Man 2, which is on PS4, and Spider Man 2 on PS5. He passed on Grand Theft Auto. He didn't see any value in Grand Theft Auto 3 or Vice City. This is the guy that passed up on Guitar Hero. This is the guy that passed up on Destiny. All these games is Phil Spencer admitted to passing up on. Not so much Grand Theft Auto and what was it? Not Grand Theft Auto and Spider Man, but those were rumors that he had first crack at those also.
I see.
So yeah, I mean, Phil, it's not just make a gaming box and put it in stores with a nice price tag. It's you know hardware, good hardware, or even great hardware means nothing if there's no software to run.
Oh yeah.
You would think with Microsoft being a computer company, they would know that.
I think that
Um,
there's too many old the people call them old heads where I come from, where it's like there's too many people who are older than a certain age that start to lose sight and muster and vitality within themselves to make viable services and products too. So it's at that point now in history, not just gaming, also just in the economy as a whole, where all the people who are in charge are like baby boomers and older. They don't have a good insight or originality to what they're making or doing within this economy. Especially comes down to certain leaders in our countries as well too are doing the same thing too. That's screwing up the progress of this country as well too. So it's a matter of time where it's like it's gonna crash or to just level itself out or recorrect itself. It's natural selection at this rate, you know. The old and no offense, the old and the stupid, to some of them that is, will have to be outpriced or out taken out of these companies sooner or later through voting of the board or whatever comes first, or irrelevancy. They're irrelevant. Some of these major players of the game industry now, and hopefully, the next 5 or 10 years, hopefully at most 10 years, we'll see a good correction of the game industry as a whole, and then guys like Phil Spencer will may have something going on, by then. If not, then it'll be new people, new workers, new leaders. So let's hope for the best.
yeah. So I mean, Phil Spencer, stop buying gaming companies, stop buying gaming developers, stop buying gaming franchises, and also look in the mirror and look at who killed the Xbox.
The other guy killed the
Maybe
Xbox.
instead of Xbox, Microsoft needs to come out with a new console with a different name and
Yeah,
don't admit defeat in the console war.
especially on a podcast, you mentioned that last year or so.
Yeah, and stop and give new games time to grow on your console before you ship them out to the rival. Unless you're getting something in return.
Oh yeah.
If they said, oh, okay, we'll send Uncharted 1 and 2 to Xbox for Indiana Jones, um, then I could see the point because you would be getting something in return.
And speaking of Indiana Jones, I know this may sound going off topic, partially speaking, but the trailers, the movies, scenes they show in the game, Great Circle and all, it seems all like AI generated and stuff. So it's kind of like it lacks some muster. It lacks the oomph in the game because obviously the acting of Indiana Jones and that Russian dude, it wasn't all that great except for that Choo Choo sequel. That's about it. But other than that, these games are lacking, and if you have lacking games, then you have a console that's not going to be as impactful. I miss the good old days where when you buy a Super Nintendo, a Dreamcast, even or even just a PS2, especially, you buy that system, you have over 1,000 games to choose from, and most of those games are very good. Oh, out of let's say there's like 1,000 games are released for the PS2, at least 750 to 800 games are good, are very good games. Now with Xbox, and between Xbox and Sony, Xbox and PlayStation, you're lucky to get like half at best that are somewhat playable. The rest is just like all SJW. That's what happened. They've rolled too much political identity politics into the games, and then this is what you get. And all this quantity with so little quality. You know.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So exactly. Um, and that's the last story we have. So I hope you enjoyed this version of this episode of the Let's Discuss Gaming podcast. The next episode will be on November 30th. Dr. Games 101, do you have anything that you plan tomorrow?
Um, as always, hopefully we will be tomorrow. Um, I know I said to you guys I want to do more gameplay of Cyber 2077. A lot has happened for the last couple of weeks. I have some family affairs to attend to, so that's why I haven't been uploading as much. Even though you see the podcast episodes we uploaded to my channel and all, so you can see those for the next several weeks while I muster up and gather my gameplay for Cyberpunk and other games as well. So enjoy those. And yeah, that's about it for the time being.
Okay, yeah. I don't have anything else to add. I don't have anything planned for tomorrow, unfortunately. Um, so yeah, so until next time, good night, everyone.
Night, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.